Welcome to Math Mini Lessons, and today we're talking about transversals and the angles they create. Let's get started. There are so many really cool sites for measuring and talking about geometry and connecting it to algebra, and there's this awesome site called GeoGebra. I might be saying it wrong, and you can play with things. So we're going to talk today about a different type of geometry. We're going to talk about transversals, and this site had an awesome way of just explaining some of the terms that happen with transversals. Now, transversal just means that we have two parallel lines. You can see them here. The one's going horizontal, and there's a line that cuts through both parallel lines. Like it just slices through both of them. That is a transversal. And when it cuts the angle, it usually does both lines, well, not usually, it always cuts both lines at the exact same angle. So looking here, what you see highlighted are corresponding angles, meaning those two are exactly the same measure. Those angles are the same to each other. So we call them corresponding. Another term you're going to hear me use in our model today are alternate interior angles. Let's see what that looks like. Well, what do you know about alternate angles? So they're both interior, meaning they're on the insides when we're looking at our parallel lines, but they're on alternate sides of the transversal. One is to the left and one is to the right. So what do you think an alternate exterior angle is going to look like? If this is interior, you guessed it, exterior just means it's on the outside of those parallel lines, but they're still on alternate sides of the transversal. So just thinking through that one, let's look at the next term, which are same side interior. So what do you think that means? If we're an interior, it has to be on the inside. So what does it mean to be same side interior? There you go. They're both on the same side of transversal, but they're on the inside parts between those two parallel lines. So then what do we think same side exterior must mean? You guessed it, they're on the same side of transversal, but they are on the outsides of the parallel lines. So they look exterior. So we're going to use these terms as we explore problems with transversals. So let's go into our first model. In this problem, we're going to try and find the measure of angle POR. So let's identify it, P, O, and R. So I'm looking for this angle over here. Let's put it as our X for now. And again, we have our two parallel lines, NP and QS, and they are both cut by a transversal. It goes through both parallel lines at O and at R. And let's start with the first term that we learned about, which was a corresponding angle. I'm looking at this 55. Which corresponds to the 55? If you think back to our model, it would be this one over here. So these are corresponding angles. And once we know which angles correspond, we can do a whole lot with transversals. Now I can figure out what all those angles are. Even though I really just want POR, we can figure it out because we know quite a bit about straight angles and supplementary angles. So if I want to know what this angle is here, and we're going to learn more about these angles on opposite sides of a vertex, but I want to use logic first. I can use the 55 to figure out the measure of angle MOP. If we know this side is 55, 55 plus what is going to give us P. So that is going to be our first part. So I can just do 180. I can subtract 55. And that is going to give me 125 degrees. So I know this angle is 125 degrees. Now we're one step closer to figuring out what angle X would be. Because now I have yet another straight angle. So if this is 125, what does the X have to be? You could just use your thinking again and just do, well, 180 minus 125, and it will give you that number back, 55 degrees. So X is equal to 55 degrees. Let's hit pause so you can jot this in. And again, just some takeaways here. When we're working with transversal, once you have one angle, you can identify very quickly its corresponding angle. It will be on the same side of the transversal, just on the other end. So if this is here on the left side, this one would be here on the left side as well. And once we know one angle, we can use what we know about supplements to figure out any other angle. But I have a feeling you're going to start identifying a pattern as you do that. You're going to start seeing that if we know one angle out of these four, we can very quickly figure out what the other ones are. And you'll start to recognize a recurring pattern between them that we're going to explore in future lessons. Get some practice on using transversals, and we will see you in the next lesson.